The sun had already climbed high over the training compound, throwing down a heat that pressed against every stone, every patch of dirt, and every soldier in uniform. Dust swirled with every boot that pounded against the hard ground. Recruits stood in 2 neat rows, their shoulders tense, rifles resting on their backs. Sweat clung to their foreheads, but not one dared to wipe it away. Among them stood Aisha Khan, her dark hair tucked beneath her cap, her jaw set. At 22, she had fought too hard to get here, to allow herself a moment of weakness. While most of the recruits came from military families, born into traditions of service, Aisha had clawed her way through doubt, rejection, and the sneering disbelief of those who thought she wasn't cut out for this life. Her heart pounded with the rhythm of the drills, but it wasn't just exhaustion that tightened her chest. It was the man pacing in front of them, Sergeant Malik. Malik was built like the walls of the compound itself, broad, immovable, and without mercy. His boots struck the ground with the confidence of someone who had broken countless recruits before. He scanned the line with a glare that seemed to cut into bone, and when his eyes paused on Aisha, she felt the weight of that stare like a challenge. "You think this is some playground?" Malik barked, his voice cracking through the still air. "You're not here to try. You're here to prove you can fight, survive, and endure. If you can't, then step out now and save me the time." No one moved. Aisha kept her chin lifted, but she knew what was coming. Malik had made it clear from day one that he didn't trust her presence in his yard. She wasn't the first woman to train under him, but she was the one who pushed back the hardest, the one who refused to shrink when he tested her. And Malik despised defiance. The silence stretched, broken only by the cicadas in the dry air. Malik's eyes darted from one face to the next before settling on Aisha again. "You!" he growled, pointing at her. Front and center. Her boots crunched against the gravel as she stepped forward. She could feel the stares of her fellow recruits on her back, some curious, some worried, some secretly hoping she'd fail, so the pressure wouldn't fall on them next. "Yes, Sergeant," Aisha answered, her voice steady. Malik folded his arms, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile predators wore before they struck. "Show me what you've got," he said. "Let's see if all that talk about grit and resilience is real. Attack." The words hit her like a slap. Attack. Not spar, not practice. Attack. For a moment, doubt flickered in her mind. He was twice her size, with years of combat training etched into every scar across his knuckles. But if she hesitated, the humiliation would be worse than losing. She clenched her fists and lunged. Malik didn't flinch. He moved with terrifying speed, sidestepping her and gripping her arm before she could strike. With one brutal motion, he twisted and slammed her into the dirt. The impact stole her breath. Dust filled her mouth, her palms scraping against the gravel. Gasps rippled through the recruits, standing in formation. Malik towered above her, his shadow cutting across her face. "Pathetic," he spat. "That's the best you can do? You don't belong here, Khan. You're wasting my time, and theirs." Her ears rang, her chest burned, but somewhere deep inside, a fire caught. She forced herself onto her elbows, her eyes locking on his. There was no shame in her gaze, only fury. "I'm not done," she said through gritted teeth. Somewhere behind her, a recruit, Ravi, shifted uncomfortably. He whispered under his breath, "Just stay down, Aisha." But she ignored him. Malik's grin widened, mocking. "Not done. You think you can break free from me? Go on then, show me." The other recruits were frozen, torn between fear and anticipation. They had all been thrown down by Malik before, but none had ever dared to rise so quickly, to defy him so openly. Aisha planted her palms in the dirt and pushed herself up. Her body ached, her pride even more so. but she stood tall again. For a split second, silence reigned in the yard. Then Malik lunged at her again, faster this time, and this time, she was ready. The silence after Malik's order was heavier than the heat pressing down on the yard. Dust clung to Aisha's uniform. Her palms were scraped raw, but she stood tall, eyes fixed on him. For the briefest moment, Malik's smirk faltered. The recruits noticed. They had just witnessed what no one else had dared. Aisha had stood back up after Malik threw her down. Again, Malik barked, though his voice carried less arrogance now. Without hesitation, Aisha raised her fists. Malik lunged, his movements sharper, fueled by anger. His hand shot out, but she twisted away, breaking his grip. Gasps spread through the recruits, a few muttering in disbelief. Malik attacked again, but she ducked and rolled, coming back to her feet, fire burning in her eyes. For the first time, Malik's expression hardened. "Lucky," he spat. "Try it again," and so they fought. His strength slammed against her speed, his size against her will. Each strike he landed, she absorbed and adapted to, learning, countering faster. The recruits leaned forward without meaning to, caught in the rhythm of the clash. Then the moment came. Malik lunged wide, overreaching. Aisha pivoted, locked his arm, and with every ounce of strength, used his weight against him. The sergeant crashed into the dirt. The yard froze. No one breathed. Malik, the untouchable, lay sprawled in disbelief, and there stood Aisha, drenched in sweat, chest rising and falling, eyes unbroken. She had done the unthinkable. By dinner, her victory had already turned into legend. The mess hall buzzed with whispers. She flipped him. No one's ever done that to Malik. She stood back up when he told her to stay down. Her name carried a new weight now, spoken not with doubt, but with awe. At her table, Ravi leaned close. "You realize what you did, right?" "I didn't do anything special," she said, keeping her eyes on her tray. Fatima shook her head. "You threw Malik in front of 40 recruits. That's not nothing." Aisha smiled faintly, but inside she was restless. She hadn't wanted to humiliate Malik, only to prove she wouldn't break. But she knew things would never be the same. Malik, however, did not forgive. His pride burned like a raw wound. The memory of the dirt beneath his back gnawed at him. In the days that followed, his voice grew harsher, his drills more punishing, and whenever his gaze found Aisha, the orders were heavier, sharper. "Again, Khan. Do it again. You call that effort. My grandmother moves faster." Don't think one lucky throw makes you special. But every insult only made her stronger. She woke earlier, ran farther, trained harder. Her bruises became her armor. Slowly, others began to follow her example. Ravi practiced late into the night with her. Fatima joined her runs. Even Omar, once skeptical, started nodding with respect when she passed. Malik saw it too. His control, once absolute, was slipping. Fear was fading, replaced by belief, and that infuriated him. So he devised a final test. 2 weeks later, he assembled the recruits at the obstacle yard. His eyes were hard, arms folded. "Today, we separate the strong from the weak. You'll run the gauntlet. Walls, mud, barbed wire, fire. At the end, combat. Prove you belong." The recruits stiffened. The gauntlet was brutal, a trial reserved for those whose future hung in the balance. Malik's stare lingered on Aisha. Khan goes last. One by one, recruits stumbled through the course. Some survived, some collapsed. Malik barked orders and criticism, rarely praise. Finally, Aisha stepped forward. Dust clung to her boots, her body sore but ready. "Let's see if lightning strikes twice," Malik muttered. She ran. Walls tore at her hands. Mud dragged at her boots. Barbed wire cut into her uniform, and fire licked her skin. But she pushed through, each obstacle fueling her determination. By the time she emerged, gasping, Malik was waiting. No instructor, no shield, just him. End of the line, Khan. You want to prove yourself. Beat me or crawl back. The fight began with a storm of blows. Malik struck with raw power, but Aisha met him with speed, precision, and memory. Every lesson from every bruise guided her now. She dodged, blocked, countered, until she spotted the same mistake. His reach too wide, his weight off balance. She ducked under, slammed her shoulder into his chest, and drove forward. He staggered, stunned. The recruits roared. With a final sweep of her leg, she sent him crashing into the dirt. The yard erupted with cheers. Malik lay staring at the sky, breath ragged. For the second time, he had been beaten before his own recruits. And this time, no one could call it luck. It was Aisha. She stood over him, battered but unbroken, and extended her hand. After a long pause, Malik took it. She pulled him up, and the recruits' cheers thundered again, echoing across the compound. From that day forward, Aisha's name carried weight. She had faced fire, dirt, humiliation, and had risen stronger. She had proven that resilience could bend even iron. For her, the victory was not just against Malik. It was against every doubt, every whisper, every voice that said she couldn't.